She has designed the course curriculum and teaches Kautilya's Arthashastra through webinars and contact workshops. Her research focuses on the concept of strategic culture in the Indian context. She is a graduate in history from Lady Shri Ram College and a postgraduate in international relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University. She has received her doctoral degree from University of Hyderabad. Her PhD thesis titled Kautilya's Arthashastra and Indian Strategic Culture, a comparative study of two phases of India's foreign policy, 1947 to 1964 and 1998 to 2014, reflects the convergence of her interest in ancient Indian historical texts and contemporary strategic studies. She also writes regularly for several online platforms like The Wire, The Print, Observer Research Foundation, Vyavasai, and the Chanakya Forum. I welcome Achintya Majitia. Achintya is a graduate from Hindu College and he has done his history honors. He is currently preparing to begin his Masters in International Relations from School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. I welcome Manashi Ghosh. Manashi Ghosh is a passionate researcher and lifelong learner, deeply interested in ancient Indian knowledge system. She is currently pursuing PhD under the supervision of Professor Santosh Kumar Shukla at the School of Sanskrit and Indic Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Her research focuses on the ancient Indian military system as documented in Sanskrit sources. Manashi completed MPhil titled A Critical Study on Treaty with Special Reference to the Arthashastra. She has presented research papers at several prestigious institutions across India. She is also an enthusiastic learner in exploring Indian philosophy and culture. I welcome Samir Mani Tripathi. Samir Mani Tripathi is a research scholar of medieval history at the Center of Historical Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. The author is currently working on his PhD thesis titled State Formation and Legitimatization Process, an epigraphical study of Kadambas of Goa. He is also qualified for JRF. A deep enthusiasm for history and an unwavering quest for knowledge have characterized his academic journey. This particular area of academic interest is the transition phase of the early medieval era and the transition from the medieval to the early modern period from the perspective of state formation, history of religion, gender history, and military history. Can we have Dr. Alok Yadav?
Yeah.
We welcome you. We welcome Dr. Alok Yadav. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Defense and Strategic Studies at Hindu College, Moradabad, UP. He holds a JRF qualification from UGC and completed his MSc and DPhil from the University of Allahabad. Dr. Alok has contributed significantly to the field with a focus on foreign policy, international relations, diplomacy, national security, and India's defense policy. His research endeavors have yielded numerous publications in esteemed national and international journals. Furthermore, he has been a prominent presence in the academic circuit, presenting his work at various international and national conferences and seminars. Can I request all of you for a group photograph, please, before we start the session?
My driver did some moving from July. My son-in-law will go for me. So, thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure in welcoming you all to this Young Scholars Conference. I know it's the last session or the last day of the Indian Military Heritage Festival, but let me promise you all it's not the least. And I'm sure the four presenters here will bear me out today. This initiative, the Young Scholars Conference, is an initiative by the Udbhav project. Udbhav, as most of us are aware, is a collaborative effort between the Indian Army and the United Service Institution. The primary objective of Project Udbhav is to look back into the roots of what we may call as contemporary Indian strategic thinking or military thinking, I think the question which is on the top of our minds and which should be on the top of our minds is why is it that we are trying to excavate the past? Why is it that we're trying to look into the roots? Why is it that we try and look for our civilizational identity? Why is it that we're looking for the answers to the question, what does it really mean to be an Indian, right? And to my mind, I think there are two important reasons why we should be doing that, and both are related. The first is, I think it's quite an established fact that the trajectory of the rise of independent India has been quite an anomaly. So, Indians, the way India has conducted post-independence, it's not really charted a known course. There have been certain peculiarities, and perhaps looking into our past would give us a sense of those peculiarities, the genesis of those peculiarities. So we would certainly know better who we are and where we come from. So that's an important reason why we need to look into our past. And flowing from this is the second reason that once we know as Indians who we are, where we come from, we can perhaps, communicate that identity better to the rest of the world. And I think it's important for us to communicate to the rest of the world our own orientations, our dispositions, our attitudes, especially so in a world which is fraught with uncertainty, especially so in a world where India's agency is only growing. Now, there are two ways of looking into the past, and thankfully, we have a mix of both among the presenters here today. One, of course, is a purely intellectual inquiry that you look at political ideas and political philosophies, which are typically part of texts and treatises, like we discussed in a session yesterday. So, from the Vedas, the epics, the Artha tradition, Dharma tradition, all that has ever been written in the form of scripts, in the form of texts, in the form of commentaries that talk about kingship, violence, empire, etc. Right? The other is the actual history of what happened on the ground. What were the battles that were fought? How were those battles fought, etc., etc. But if you're really trying to trace the roots of Indian military strategic thought, I think it's the interface between the political ideas and what actually happened on the ground which really matters. You need to look at political ideas as much as you need to look at how those political ideas can be historicized, can be incorporated into the actual polity of the time that that historical idea emerged in, right? And I'm sure the scholars here with me on the stage today will do a bit of both. So on that note, and with that context, with the hope that the four very distinguished scholars here with me will add to this body of knowledge that we are chasing to find. It's my pleasure to call upon. So there are four presenters here today. We'll begin with Samir, who will be presenting on the forgotten maritime history, the naval power dominance of Kadambas of Goa, 10th to the 14th centuries. He'll have about 10 minutes. Each of the presenters have about 10 minutes, so we'll then open the house for questions from the audience before we do a summing up. So over to you, Samir. If you have a slide, you can request it to be up.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank everyone and especially the Indian Military Festival to select my paper and give me a chance to present my paper here. My paper title is, as you can say, that the forgotten maritime history, the naval power dominance of the Kadambas of Goa, circa 10 to the 14th century. As the title depicts, I started with the forgotten maritime history. Why I did so? Because whenever we talk about the existing historiography of ancient navy or early medieval navy, we do talk about the Chola Empire or more or less Maratha Empire, Kanhoji Angre. Apart from that, generally we see that we don't have any kind of existing work which especially focus on ancient and early medieval navy. Or generally existing historiography talk about the lacuna of Indian navy, and they said that the Indians were more interested in the peaceful trade and commerce, and they did not interested in the military purposes. But that was not the case. My paper would highlight the role of navy and the sea warfare in the pre-Portuguese Goa during the regime of the Goa Kadambas. Goa Kadambas were a dynasty who ruled over the Goa from 10 to the 14th century, and well, actually my paper was designed for initially I tried to design my paper for the warfare of the Kadambas. But when I started researching on this topic, I came across an interesting reference, which is known as the Asia's most extensive and largest base of India, especially built for the Navy, called INS Kadamba. The first question came in my mind that why the Indian Navy derives its name INS Kadamba? They can do any other name, but the first question that came into mind is why this base is known as INS Kadamba. Do we have any significance of Kadamba dynasty? Who are the Kadamba? Why Indian Navy try to do so? INS Kadamba, Asia's largest and most advanced naval base, derives its names from the Kadamba dynasty, which once ruled over the Goa region and some part of the Karnataka. Based on the Marcella copper plate inscription, a historian S.G. Kadam argued, I am quoting him, that Karwar naval base, INS Kadamba, is presently situated on the same land gifted in the Araji village by Goa Kadambas in the services of goddess Bhagwati. This point is also draw the attention of authorities of Indian Navy and eventually led it to the being named as the INS Kadamba unquote. Since most of you, I am assuming because I am a historian, and most of the time historians argue that probably this was happened. So I am assuming that most of the you did not familiar with the maybe who are the Kadambas. I am trying to, can you move on the next slide? Brief outline of the Goa Kadamba. Goa Kadamba emerged as the successor of the Satavahana Empire around the 4th century CE. This dynasty was established by Mayur Sarman in the 4th century CE.
Is it displayed? You can see. Check. Can you see?
Okay, thank you. Most of the their history has been written with the help of the inscription, though no literature has been found so far. This dynasty ruled for at least 3 centuries until or unless the famous inscription of Ahol describes that they were defeated by Pulikesin II, and we do not have any evidence of them from the next 3 centuries. During 10th century, they reappeared as our political scenario, and they become one of the most prominent Kadamba dynasty, which is known as Goa Kadambas. They hold sway over the Goa for next 2.5 centuries before their power began decline at the end of the 13th century. In the middle of the 14th century, Goa Kadambas were completely disappeared from the political landscape of Goa. Can you move on to the next slide? So before going to the what exactly Goa Kadamba do for the Navy, I have tried to give a brief theoretical overview of the maritime history of Goa Kadamba. In Indian historical tradition, we have see having naval power in India. We have various references of long sea voyages from the Indus Valley civilization to the present. However, the imperialist historians and still today some Marxist school of historiography argued that there was a lacuna of naval power in India. Indian people were more interested in the peaceful trade and commerce. But what about the basic question? We should ask that if any peaceful trade or commerce through the sea route possible without safeguarding the routes. As we know that in modern time today, Somalia has been called as a haven for the pirates. But how in Indian civilization since the ancient time, how it can be possible without safeguarding the sea route that we can or do peaceful commerce? As Kaushik Rai rightly argues, one must remember that the control over the rivers was essential for the transporting means and supply, and during any dangerous situation in sea or water, with some modification, the commercial ship would be used as the warship. And in conceptualizing Indian and ancient early medieval navies, their naval policy can be attributed to a modern term amphibious warfare, which denotes a special kind of warfare generally fought in the coastal areas with the help of military and seaborne forces. However, it is very surprised to know that the most of these scholars did not pay attention to the Goa Kadambas. And interestingly, Goa Kadambas has more direct evidence of their naval engagement. Their inscription directly talked about that this dynasty defeated various rulers in the naval engagement, and their Veer-Gals also depicted that, which we will discuss later. Recently, some scholars like Professor Pius and Ranveer Chakravarti had tried to retell the story of Goa Kadambas, but their story, they more focused on the trade and commerce instead of the maritime history. So the first theme was the from plunder to the prosperity, elimination of piracy and ensuring safe trade through the sea. I choose this title from plunder to piracy. Why plunder to prosperity? Because in Periplus of Erythraean Sea or any other ancient texts, we had a reference that the Konkan coast known as the safe country for the pirates, and due to the Due to the fear of pirates, these sea pirates, the trade and commerce were stagnant. Goa Kadambas have realized the importance of the sea, and they have given credited with the making the Konkan coast free of the sea pirates with the help of the navy. There are various instances in their epigraph in which the Goa Kadambas were fighting with the rebels. For example, Parji Prasasti described the enemy of Goa Kadambas as demons of the head, like Ravana. And another inscription of King Sastadeva described that the king had to build a bridge of ships to cross over the river. Or this indicates that the a bridge of the ships. This means that the ship has been deployed to cross over the rivers. And if you talk about the bridge of ships, then we have to put some soldiers on it to safeguard this. After defeating the Goa, after defeating the pirates, they have assumed the title like Paschimadi Samudradipati, with literal meaning the Lord of the Western Sea, and they assumed the title of Padvalendra, which also means the Lord of the Sea. Apart from that, can we move on the next slide? Apart from that, we have a special kind of taxation system during Goa Kadambas. They collected taxes from ships to ships for using their harbors, which indicate that they had the control not only the ports but also were able to protect the sea trading routes. Controlling the route was necessary, as we later see the inefficiency of even the mighty Mughal Empire in controlling ocean trade. They were vulnerable to the Portuguese in the sea, and even Mughal emperors also had to pay cartage from the Portuguese. Kadamba realized the importance of a powerful fleet to control and make frequent patrol over the sea to avoid any piracy and disturbance. Goa Charter of Jai Kesi Deva first described him as reputed to have always put himself at the head of his powerful fleet, which was ever ready with the numerous fortified vessels to sail through the sea. And it is also said that due to the fear of Kadamba's worship, rulers of other neighboring ports and seaguard islands might pay tribute to them. This information also suggests a vital point here that sea route was safe for the traders. We may argue that providing safe journey to the long distance voyages should have been costly ones, as the story of Jewish merchant Alan B. Hassan depicted. Alan B. Hassan was a Jewish merchant and who came to Goa to sell his product because he did not find any suitable buyer in his native place, which was situated in the Arab Gulf. So basically, he sold his product here and gone back to his home. And this story say that the travel route from the Gulf to the Goa was safe for the travelers. Gopkapatna and Sindapur emerged as the two crucial strategic ports for the trading purposes. They also served as manufacturing hubs for the shipbuilding and were used as the naval bases to control over the sea and the river. Manufacturing hub for the shipbuildings means like we have example of various pilgrimage which has been taken by the Goa Kadambas. Like a famous during a famous journey to the famous Somnath temple, the main mast of the ship got broken and they were repaired that ship at the Gopkapatna port. That's why I try to mention that these ports were not only for the trading and the military purposes, but they also served as a shipbuilding industry too. Next slide. My next slide is the naval engagement with the contemporary power. Goa Kadamba only not has been credited to have engagement with the safe route and all other things, but they have also given credit to engage with the contemporary naval power, which also shows that in India at that time there were presence of some other dynasty too who know the importance of the navy. Goa Kadambas had to be involved in the series of battles with the contemporary power to claim their authority over sea. Many references in their epigraphical records show that Kadamba had a long history of wars with his predecessors, the northern Silahara. Gandevi inscription told us about the rulers of Saurashtra, Anga, Kalinga, Maharashtra, Andhra, Vindhya, and Kanchi, and further denotes that the king is said to have defeated the king of Singhala, Parasika, Kanakdipa in the naval engagement. Basically, a point should be mentioned here that these all are the most of them are the symbolic places. Basically, they did not like if they mention the Ceylon, that did not mean that they crossed the river and attacked on the Lanka, modern day Sri Lanka, but they tried to symbolize them their enemy, and give them the title like the god of lord of the demons and all other things. Interestingly, there are direct mention of the maritime power without talking much about the trade. These records clearly establish that apart from trading purpose, the Navy was deployed to safeguard the country. There we have another evidence of their engagement with the Cholas, and it was interesting. They were diplomatic too. Kuakadambas were diplomatic too. They did not challenge Chola when they were at their peak. They challenged Chola when the Chola Empire started declining. Can you move on the next slide? In conclusion, this research paper is an effort to bring the limelight the presence of a mighty naval empire during the early medieval period. The primary objective of this paper to discuss the maritime power of the Goa Kadambas, analyzing their epigraphical record and elaborating those epigraphical records with the available Geniza record of the Arabs, unveils important facet of the Goa Kadambas rich navy history. Goa Kadambas were virtually master of the maritime trade, and unlike the other dynasty, their inscription clearly mentions various battles fought by this dynasty. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samir. Next up is the Dr. Alok Yadav, and he'll be speaking on the Rajput way of war, lessons from the Battle of the Rhine. Please keep to the time limit.
Thank you, ma'am. Rajput way of war, lessons from the Battle of the Rhine. Thank you, USI, to giving me this opportunity. I am here to discuss the Rajput way of the war, not mainly focus on history, because this is the battle everyone know, because there was movie on it. In every historical book, this chapter was included. My focus will be on tactical and strategical methods and their lessons in today's modern time. और राजपूत मिलिट्री सिस्टम मेनली फ्यूडल सिस्टम था, जिसमें फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स होते थे जो किंग्स को रिपोर्ट करते थे, और उनके जो लॉर्ड्स होते थे उनको अपने घोड़े भी खुद ही लाने होते थे और उनके हथियार खुद लाते थे। जब युद्ध की घोषणा हो जाती थी, उन्हें अनुमान लग जाता था, उनकी इंटेलिजेंस बताती थी, तब वो प्रिपरेशन स्टार्ट करते थे कि अब यहाँ से क्राइसिस है, कोई कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, स्ट्रगल वार लाइक सिचुएशन है, या अटैक करना है हमें किसी दूसरे रियासत पे, तब वो तैयारी करके वहाँ पे अटैक की वो प्रैक्टिस करते थे। डेली प्रैक्टिस उनकी होती थी, सबकी इंडिविजुअल होती थी। और राजपूत काल में जो इस समय होता था, तो इसमें जो ज्यादातर योद्धा होते थे, ये पूरे आर्मी से ज्यादा वो इंडिविजुअल वैल्यू पर विश्वास रखते थे कि एक योद्धा पूरे युद्ध को बदल सकता है। इंडिविजुअल वैल्यू और डोमिनेंस पे उनका विश्वास ज्यादा था, और इस वजह से मार्शल कौन थी और लॉयल्टी किंग्स के प्रति उनकी होती थी। और ज्यादातर जो युद्ध लड़े जाते थे वो बेनिफिट के साथ साथ वो धर्म के लिए लड़े जाते थे, वो आइडियलिज्म के लिए लड़े जाते थे कि हम अपने सिद्धांतों के लिए जान तक दे देंगे, अंतिम सांस तक लड़ने की बात थी। जो लेसन लर्न करते हैं, आज भी भारतीय सैनिक जो हैं, सीमा पे युद्ध चलता है तो बाकी पे हम डोमिनेंस इसलिए कर जाते हैं कि हमारे पास हथियार उनसे कम भले हों। कभी कभी ऐसी बैटल्स देखने को मिली है, जैसे बैटल ऑफ रेजरगुला, जहां पे चाइनीज हावी थे, लेकिन कुछ 100 सैनिकों ने अपनी वीरता से ही उनको बुरी तरह से हराया। तो ये इतिहास में जो हारी हुई संग्राम है, इससे हम ज्यादा सीख सकते हैं बगैर जिनसे जो जीती हुई बैटल्स हैं। जीती हुई बैटल्स से बस आगे किंग्स चेंज हो जाते हैं, आगे चीजें, लेकिन हारी हुई बैटल से हम हिस्ट्री बदल सकते हैं। हम इसमें 3 बैटल से सीखते हैं, जैसे बैटल ऑफ टेराइन, बैटल ऑफ पानीपत और बैटल ऑफ असाई, जिसने इंडियन मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री को पूरी तरह से डिसाइड किया है। तो राजपूत के साथ साथ अब इनकी स्ट्रेटजी आउटकम्स क्या थे। फर्स्ट बैटल में
स्लाइड
पहले बैटल में जब मोहम्मद गौरी ने अटैक किया, मोहम्मद गौरी को पूरी तरह से आइडिया नहीं था पृथ्वीराज चौहान के पास कितनी सेना है, कितनी स्ट्रेंथ है, पूरी आइडिया नहीं थी। और पूरा का पूरा पहले में मोटिवेशन था बैटल ऑफ टेराइन के फर्स्ट बैटल में 1991 में, और पूरी एकजुटता थी, यूनिटी थी, पूरी कंट्रोल वे में भारी संख्या में मोहम्मद गौरी को हराया। स्पेशली जो उनके मिलिट्री स्ट्रक्चर था, तरीका था, दो धारी तलवार से युद्ध करते थे, डबल एज स्वॉर्ड से। ज्यादातर योद्धा कैवलरी पे होते थे, इन्फेंट्री भी होती थी, और इसके अलावा एलिफेंट्स होते थे जो ज्यादातर उनके काम आते थे किले की मोर्चेबंदी को तोड़ने के लिए। वो सिंबॉलिक होते थे ज्यादातर। और इसमें मोहम्मद गौरी बुरी तरह हारा और वापस गया। यहीं से सीखने की बात है कि हम क्या लर्न कर सकते हैं हिस्ट्री से। हारने के बाद पृथ्वीराज वापस आए और वहां पे उन्होंने जो मोहम्मद गौरी को रिलीज किया है, ये बहुत से हिस्टोरियन मानते हैं कि आइडियलिज्म पे हम फॉलो करते थे, पूरी तरह सिद्धांतों की बात थी। और शरणागत अगर कोई हो गया तो उसको माफ करने और छोड़ने की बात थी, जो हमारे धर्म शास्त्रों से आया था। तो उन्होंने फॉलो किया, और जब मोहम्मद गौरी शरणागत हो गया पृथ्वीराज चौहान के सामने, तो उन्होंने छोड़ दिया। और पूरी की पूरी जो बुरी आर्मी थी उनको कोई पीछा करके किसी का कत्लेआम नहीं किया गया, कोई मास क्राइसिस नहीं हुआ, ब्लडशेड नहीं हुआ, और वापस आके अपना साम्राज्य बचा के आगे कंटिन्यू कर दिए। बट यहाँ पे लैक ऑफ इंटेलिजेंस हुआ, सर्विलांस हुआ। मोहम्मद गौरी वापस गया और इन्होंने जो आर्चर थे पृथ्वीराज चौहान के, उनसे उन्होंने सीखा कि इनको कैसे, इनके तलवारबाजों को कैसे हराया जा सकता है। जो इंडिविजुअल ब्रेवरी के लिए जाने जाते हैं वो किसी हद तक जा सकते थे, चाहे उनको कितनी भी घाव लगे हो, लेकिन वो लड़ते रह रहे थे। तो मोहम्मद गौरी ने इस पे पूरा काम किया, लेसन को लर्न किया कि कैसे क्या स्ट्रेटजी बनाई जाए, क्योंकि किसी भी बैटल में स्ट्रेटजी वहीं पे समाप्त होती है जहां पे युद्ध शुरू होता है, वहां पे टैक्टिक्स स्टार्ट होती है। और स्ट्रेटजी के बिना कोई भी बैटल जीती नहीं जा सकती। फर्स्ट बैटल में मोहम्मद गौरी ने बहुत खास स्ट्रेटजी नहीं बनाई थी, बट सेकंड बैटल में उसने पूरी प्लानिंग, स्ट्रेटजी और टैक्टिक्स के साथ अटैक किया। उसने पूरा सर्विलांस लगाया, इंटेलिजेंस लगाए, और इवन वार जब शुरू होने, बैटल शुरू होने वाली थी, उसके पहले भी जब शाम को पूरी सेना आ गई, उसने अपने लॉजिस्टिक्स को 10 किलोमीटर पीछे ही छोड़ दिया कि वापस अगर पीछे आना पड़ा तो भागने में आसानी हो। और शाम को पहुंच के उन्होंने लेटर दिया कि हम भटिंडा रियासत को बस वापस चाहते हैं, हम युद्ध नहीं चाहते हैं। तो जिससे, क्योंकि ये राजपूत आर्मी उसमें ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस में थी कि हम तो इनको एक बार पहले भी हरा चुके हैं, पूरी तरह हराया है, वापस से हमको कुछ ज्यादा कुछ नहीं करने की जरूरत है, आराम से हरा सकते हैं। और वो लगभग तैयारी में थे उन्होंने। और यहाँ पे सेकेंड बैटल में हिस्टोरिकल इवेंट है, सभी को लगभग पता ही है कि जयचंद पृथ्वीराज चौहान से इंडिविजुअल रिलेशंस खराब होने की वजह से युद्ध में उनकी सेना नहीं आई, क्योंकि फ्यूडल सिस्टम था, अलग अलग रियासतों की अलग अलग सेना होती थी, वो नहीं आए। और उनके कुछ साथी भी जो पूरी तरह से खुले मन से सहयोग नहीं कर रहे थे। तो यहाँ पे इस बात को मोहम्मद गौरी की जो इंटेलिजेंस थी उसको बहुत अच्छे से आइडिया था कि इस पे क्या हो सकता है, क्योंकि ये नहीं है तो इनकी सेना की स्ट्रेंथ कम हो रही है। क्योंकि उसमें जयचंद एक अच्छे रियासतदार थे, उनकी सेना में ठीक ठाक कैवलरी उनकी अच्छी थी, इन्फेंट्री अच्छी थी उनकी, उसको पूरी तरह से ध्यान रखते हुए आर्चर्स को ट्रेंड किया था मोहम्मद गौरी ने, जो दूर से धनुष से इनके तलवारबाजों को मार गिराने में सक्षम थे। जब उन्होंने लेटर भेजा तो ये पूरी तरह से मान लिए कि ये भटिंडा रियासत पे बातचीत होगी। और उन्होंने सरप्राइज एलिमेंट, जो प्रिंसिपल ऑफ वॉर की बात की जाती है, जिसमें कोलैबोरेशन, सरप्राइज एंड सिलेक्शन एंड मेंटेनेंस ऑफ द एम, जो मेजर प्रिंसिपल ऑफ वॉर माने जाते हैं किसी भी वॉर में, तो ये तीनों का लैक पृथ्वीराज राजपूत में देखने को, क्योंकि इनका कोई एम नहीं था, मोटिवेशन उसके पीछे नहीं था, बस इनको डिफेंड करना था कि मोहम्मद गौरी आया है, ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस थे, हम फिर से डिफेंड कर लेंगे। लेकिन दूसरी तरफ मोहम्मद गौरी, उसका पूरा का पूरा मोटिवेशन था, उन्होंने लर्न किया था क्या क्या कमियां हैं, उस पर काम किया था, ट्रेनिंग दिया था इंडिविजुअल। जो इनके तलवारबाज थे उनको घायल करने के लिए, मारने के लिए दूर से ही तीरंदाज से उसने काम किया था, वहां से घोड़े से तीरंदाजी की प्रैक्टिस थी। जब और ऊपर से सरप्राइज एलिमेंट का यूज करते हुए मोहम्मद गौरी ने सुबह को 5 बजे ही अटैक कर दिया। और उस समय जो इंडियन मिलिट्री या इंडियन सोसाइटी होती है, मॉर्निंग में हम लोग अपना डेली रूटीन के काम कर रहे होते हैं, और किसी को आइडिया नहीं था कि ये अचानक से अटैक होगा, और अचानक से कोई नींद में था, कोई पूजा पाठ में लगा था, क्योंकि पूरी तरह से धर्म युद्ध, धार्मिक चीजें थी, धर्म में पहले पूजा करके तब निकलते थे युद्ध करने योद्धा, और वो अपने परिवारजनों से पूरी तरह से अनुमति लेके निकलते थे कि हम अगर मारे भी जाएंगे तो आप अपनी तैयारी करके रखिए। ये सब चीजें थी, और मोहम्मद गोरी की जो आर्मी थी उसने इन सबको ध्यान में रख के पूरी स्टडी की थी कि ये कितने बजे निकलेंगे, क्या इनका प्रोसेस है। उनको इंटेलिजेंस यहाँ के कुछ रियासतदारों को मिला के उसने कलेक्ट की थी, जिसका खामियाजा ये हुआ कि ये अचानक से सबसे मेन एलिमेंट था सरप्राइज। दूसरी लैक हुई एलिमेंट यहाँ पे
आखिर के 2 मिनट आप
ओके सर, लगभग फिनिश। यूनिटी नहीं थी और कोलैबोरेशन नहीं था, क्योंकि फ्यूडल सिस्टम थे, अलग अलग फ्यूडल राष्ट्र थे। वो एक तो अनबने ढंग से आए थे इस युद्ध में, वो कोलैबोरेट नहीं कर पाए, और दूसरा सरप्राइज एलिमेंट मिला जो अलग स्ट्रेटजी थी जिस वजह से, और तीरंदाज उनके तैयार थे जिसकी वजह से ये पूरी तरह से अचानक से, ऊपर से इसमें जब आर्मी को लगाया बैटल ग्राउंड में, इन्होंने कोई रिजर्व फोर्स नहीं बनाई थी राजपूतों ने, एडवांस फोर्स नहीं बनाई थी। 3 राइट विंग, लेफ्ट विंग एंड सेंटर फोर्स, 3 फोर्स को 3 पार्ट में डिवाइड किया था, और गोरी ने 5 पार्ट में डिवाइड करके रिजर्व में कुतुब बिन ऐबक जो बाद में एम्परर बना वो भी रिजर्व फोर्स में था, और उन्होंने अटैक करके फिर से वापस एक छलावा दिया, सरप्राइज फिर से बैटल ग्राउंड में भी दिया, जिससे वहां पे कुतुब बिन ऐबक और इनको भेज के फिर से वापस गए, और मोहम्मद गोरी ने लीड करते हुए बुरी तरह से राजपूतों को घेर के मारने की कोशिश की, और इस वजह से कई एलिमेंट राजपूतों के लिए सरप्राइज थे, जिससे बाद में ये लोग घबरा गए। तो आज के समय में क्या हम लेसन लर्न कर सकते हैं? सबसे ज्यादा आज बहुत से आतंकवादी छोड़ दिए जाते हैं, उसको छोड़ने से पहले आगे भविष्य में वो कितना खतरनाक हो सकता है उस पर स्टडी होनी चाहिए। यूनिटी बनाए रखने की बात है, वो ना सिर्फ मिलिट्री की यूनिटी की बात नहीं है, पॉलिटिकल ग्राउंड पे भी जो नेशनल इंटरेस्ट हमारा परमानेंट है, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी जो बाकी सब आएंगे जाएंगे, हमें नेशनल इंटरेस्ट से आगे पीछे दाएं बाएं ना होकर उस पर फोकस रहना है, यूनिटी रहनी चाहिए। स्ट्रेटेजिक इंटेलिजेंस और सर्विलांस हमें रखना है अच्छे से, उसके लिए AI, ड्रोन, बाकी न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी, सैटेलाइट टेक्नोलॉजी जितना यूज हो सकता है उसका ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा यूज करें। इसके अलावा राजपूत वे अफवाह से जो ब्रेवरी है इंडिविजुअल थी, उसको भी सीखने की एक सैनिक के लिए कि अभी भी वो अंतिम सांस तक जो लड़ता था वो आगे भी काम आ सकती है। कितना भी न्यूक्लियर वेपन आ जाए, न्यूक्लियर वार वाली सिचुएशन आ जाए, लेकिन अंतिम विजय जो कोई भी सेना करेगी, इन्फेंट्री ही करेगी ग्राउंड पे जाके। बस, थैंक यू सो मच।
Thank you, Alok. Next up is Manshi Ghosh, who will be speaking on Commandant Nitisar, decoding ancient Indian army formation.
Good afternoon to everyone. The title of my research paper is Kamandaka Nitisar, Decoding Ancient Indian Army Formation. So, Kamandaka Nitisar is an ancient text, which is Sanskrit text. It is written by Acharya Kamandaka. It has total 20 sharga, and it is mainly a Dharmasastra text. And in this text, we got a lot of military oriented slokas. The study of ancient Indian army formation, specifically focusing on Kamandaka Niti, explored the advanced military strategies and tactical doctrines that were crucial in Indian warfare. Kamandaka Nitisar, a significant text on statecraft and military science, offers a comprehensive exploration of the principle and methods of army formation. The research background places Kamandaka Niti in the wider context of ancient Indian military literature, highlighting its unique contribution and significance. So Kamandaka Nitishara, this text mainly comes after the Kautilya. It is mainly in Gupta period. It was written mainly in Gupta period. The aim and objective of this research is the research aim to analyze the types and structure of army formations outlined in Kamandaka Nitishara, understand their strategic implementation. The study seeks to emphasize the theoretical foundation of this formation, revealing their significance in historical and military context. And this study has followed the critical study methodology. Next. One more click. Yes. So, before going to the deep study of army formation, we should know the Saptam theory. In every ancient Indian text, which is related to Dharma Shastra text, where we got the Saptam theory. It is a state theory. Shami, Amatya, Janapad, Durga, Posho, Mitra, and our mainly study is on the Bala or Sena. To ensure efficient the next one. One more click. So classification of army according to Kamandaka, there are 6 types of army which is mentioned in Kamandaka Nitishara. Next. So to ensure efficient management, control and strategic placement, the military was structured into unit. After setting up a secure camp at a distance of 500 bows, the infantry should be positioned with a gap of 1 shamo, that is 14 angulas, between 2 soldiers, while cavalry should maintain 3 shamos, chariot 4 shamos, and elephant twice or thrice distance. With such spacing between section of the army, one can engage in combat without any confusion. So here in this slide, by this diagram, I tried to show how many distance should be, how many space should 2 soldiers, like 1 shamo. This is there are some diagrams in this slide. So then there should be 3 soldiers in front of horse army, and behind the horse there should be 3 foot soldiers who can provide support. The second, the pink one is the diagram. According to the state military strategy, there should be a total of 15 companion of soldiers in front of chariot and elephant army, accompanied by 5 companions of horse army. Additionally, 15 companions of foot soldier should be stationed at the back side of the chariot and elephant. The second pink one is the diagram. In Arthashastra, also provide insight into ancient army formation, stating that a basic unit of a chariot or elephant, 5 horse, 15 soldiers, and 15 guards, when deployed in a single row, 1 chariot formation included 5 horse, 5 chariot, 25 horse, 75 soldiers, Padatik soldiers, and 75 guards. It can be increased when the 3 chariot formation arranged in the rows would included 45 chariots, 225 horses, 675 soldiers, and 675 guards. To increase the strength of a 3 chariot formation, 2 chariot formation could be added up 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19 to 21. Next. So then come to the formation. The concept of army formation known as Buho or Ari played a vital role in ancient Indian warfare. This formation were meticulously crafted arrays of soldiers, chariot, elephants, and cavalry, each with a specific strategic purpose. The choice of particular wars was influenced by factors such as training, the enemy's nature, and the battle's strategic object. So the Kamandaka Nitishar categories into four fundamental types of buho, which are the Danda buho, Voga buho, Mandala buho, and Atmoshisha. So every buho or every ari has three main points. One is center, paksha, and kaksha. So here I just try to show by this diagram. There are some buhos which are like Achala buho. The first one is Achala buho, first say Shena buho, then Atabi and Gomukha. The next one. Okay, sure, ma'am. So in this way, there are above 35 to 40 buhos which is mentioned in Kamandaka Nitishara. So findings, the Kamandaka Nitishara provides a detailed and sophisticated buhos in ancient Indian military organization during the Gupta era. It emphasized strategy, troop formation, and the integration of various military forces. It classified army troops into 6 categories. The work also introduced detailed battlefield formation, including the significance of spacing and systematic organization of infantry, cavalry, elephant, and chariot, reflecting an advanced military structure in that time. The meticulous formation strategy, including Achala buho, Madhyavedi buho, and Danda buho, demonstrate a deep tactical sophistication aimed at addressing various battlefield condition and enemy configuration. These are some challenges. The next one. In application, further study we can do in military as a military heritage. We can take some points from this ancient text to make some policy formulation, etc. In conclusion, I would like to conclude with the Kamandaka Nitishara is a key ancient Indian text on warfare, statecraft, and governance, offering deep insight into military organization and strategic formation. Despite its valuable contribution to understanding the military structure that supported ancient Indian emperor, it often overshadowed by the Arthashastra. Further study could explore the historical, social, and political context and the philosophical foundation of Indian military thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Manshi. Next up, and our last presenter for the session is Achintya Majithia. He'll be speaking on social stratification and diverse martial traditions of India in the medieval period, a case study through caste and gender lens.
Hello everyone. The title of my paper is Social Stratification and Diverse Martial Traditions of Indians in the Medieval Period. Our research looks at how caste and gender influence military traditions in medieval India, highlighting regional differences and conscription practices. For example, in South India, you had the Veti system, which involved forced labor, particularly among the lower castes and tribal groups. In North India, you had pastoral communities like the Ahirs and the Gujars, who were recruited for the combat skills. The paper also discusses the origins of the martial race concept, which predates the colonial narrative many centuries before. In the north, you also had groups like the Rajputs, who were very renowned for their martial heritage. Many Rajputs volunteered for military service but during conflicts, rulers also conscripted members of their own community. Additionally, pastoral groups like the Ahirs and Gujjars were often recruited for their skills in combat and horsemanship. As mentioned, in South India and Kerala, communities like the Nayars practiced a matrilineal system known as Marhuma Kathayam, where family lineage and heritage were traced back through the female line of descent. This unique system granted women more autonomy and property rights than in other parts of India. The military traditions of Kerala were closely tied to martial communities like the Nayars, who were renowned for their skill in coloring, which was a local martial art of Kerala. Under the matrilineal system, there was a concept of Tharavars, which were martial training centers linking family structures with martial traditions. However, over time, due to the rise in Brahmanical patriarchy and colonial pressures, the matrilineal system in Kerala declined. But however, coloring martial arts and some matrilineal customs were preserved and are carried on up to this day. In Assam, the Ahoms established their rule in the 13th century, initially retaining the Thai Ahom traditions. The Thai people were an ethnic group that migrated from the Myanmar Thailand belt to India, to the northeastern part of India in the 13th century. Over time, they began adopting Hindu traditions, even aligning themselves with the Kshatriya identity, warrior identity, blending their cultural roots with Hindu and Sanskrit traditions. The Ahoms developed a flexible caste system allowing for greater social mobility, which was unlike other regions in India. This is notable in the Payat system, which required all able-bodied men, irrespective of caste, to serve in the military. This helped them to successfully repulse invasions, external invasions such as those of the Mughals under Aurangzeb, and thereby creating a distinct, inclusive culture that shaped Northeast India's social and military identity. Can you please change the slides? Next. Yes. Across regions, caste and gender influenced military traditions, but were not always rigid. For instance, the Nayars in Kerala had significant household roles, partly due to their matrilineal practices. In Assam, women were allowed to participate in warfare, with notable figures like the Ahom Queen, Queen Nakla, symbolizing flexible gender roles. Even in patriarchal regions like Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, some women, similar to the case of Naika Devi, Queen Naiki Devi of the Solanki dynasty of Gujarat, and Rani Padmavati of Chittor, rose to defend their territories. Next slide, please. The paper's main conclusion is that gender and caste roles in medieval India's martial traditions were complex and layered, reflecting flexible identities across regions rather than fixed roles. This diversity contributed to India's cultural heritage and shaped its social structures. However, the paper also has two main limitations. First, the gender narrative is underdeveloped, since most of the available analysis on military history focus on are in the context of caste, and this subject of gender in general is not studied widely. Second, the paper also touches on how caste-based militarization and the use of foreign mercenaries, caste-specific militarization, I would say, and the use of foreign mercenaries impacted Indian unity. It could also provide more insights into the detailed exploration of socio-political consequences like vulnerability to invasions. Next slide, please. These are some of the references we used for this paper. Next slide. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present our research.
Thank you so much, Achintya. Achintya has written this paper co-authored with Subrit Chattopadhyay, who couldn't make it to the session today. Thank you so much. So with the 4 presentations, I'd like to open the floor for questions from the audience. You can directly address your questions to the presenter and ask your questions if there are any. Yes, sir.
Thank you for those very useful presentations. I just have one question each to the Kadamba issue and the Rajput Way of War. You gave us 2 examples of the 2 battles. Was that restricted only to the Rajputs of that part of the country? Was it restricted only to the Chauhan dynasty? Or was this the general philosophy of the Rajput Way of War across Rajputana, the Mewar, etc., etc.? Or was it only restricted to a certain, or was it different in different parts of different Rajput kingdoms depending on their geographical, geopolitical, etc., considerations? And second question for the Kadambas. This is one of the dynasties which has been least written about, as you very clearly said. We've heard about the Cholas, we've heard about all of them, we've heard about the Zamorins, but we haven't heard about Kadambas. So I really wanted to know, what was the military dimension which you tried to highlight? Who were they actually targeting other than pirates? Was there any other maritime dynasties which they were fighting for, land control or sea control over in that part during that period, 10 to 13 centuries? Thank you.
We'll collect more questions before we allow you to answer. So, Ms. Karan.
Very interesting. Congratulations, all 4 of you. I want from all of you, what were your sources? What sources did you have to create for, Battle of the Right? And what were your sources of digital? That is, or 80% it is your creativity to impress. That is important. Second is about Rajputs. Dr. Pathak has written a book on Ala Udal. It was released last Heritage Festival. So I recommend you have a look at that because Rajputs were fighting among themselves. You know that. And that is deontological or consequentialist. Ladna hai to ladenge. So that stupidity, there is one school which says it is deontological. Second says it is consequentialist. And thirdly, Prithviraj Chauhan, I think he had 75 allies. 75 allies. So when we have 2 armies combining together, just imagine there were 75 allies. So I'm sure that must have been a huge problem. And lastly, the Indian Kautilya is being blamed for being so strong and so impressive that the Fort Chaturanga, the Indian military never changed because Kautilya was fighting, the Mahajanpas were fighting among themselves. Culturally, they were the same. So in other Shahs, you will not find any foreign invasion. But the foreign riders came, hats off to them. So therefore, that was, I think, a weakness which has been recognized by scholars. So this is my source. Just to repeat, just sources. If you want, rest is my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have, is there any other question? Okay, there's one there. Could you please help him with the mic?
So I would like to ask the question, since you were talking about Rajput war, so like in present India, our neighbors' relations are very hostile. So how do you look at it from that perspective? Like we see that our neighbors' relation is very hostile and we think that we have good relations, and how as a present day society we can learn from the mistakes that we had done and rectify it if you want to go further.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question.
Thank you. My question is about the views which you spoke about, the diagrams which you showed us here, as well as the diagrams which you have presented in your paper. You will find that there are some of them where, for instance, an example, both the flanks are on one side, the center is on the other. So this comes out, I feel, because of a very, very confusing description of these views, which are given in a very schematic manner, and it's very difficult to read them. Right, so I'm sure you too would have faced this problem when you were trying to structure those views. So, what do you think the style of writing about military things tells us about the people who wrote them and about the people who thought of using them? So, I'll just rephrase this question perhaps. So, what do you think, were those people who were writing them, were they really military people Did they understand what they were writing about? Or they understood, but because of style of writing, they made it so confusing? And because it was so confusing, how easy was it for anyone who read those papers to really use those views in battle? Whether they're really used in battle, and if they were used, whether they're used by the entire army or whether they're used by small bodies of troops. So this is something that you must consider when you are discussing views. So you can think of whatever you think.
So we'll take the same order as the presenters. We'll begin with Sabir.
Just help me. Long press the.
Hello. So first question to me by the sir, that which are others contemporary powers which with Kadamba has been fighting. So since I have more mentioned about the pirates, so maybe this question comes out. There are various powers, like first of all, Kadamba have to fight with the Northern Silaharas, who were the predecessors of the Kadambas, and there was a history with fight with them almost about 15 years. And interestingly, in these battles, Kadambas were helped by the Arab merchants. So to outside the Northern Silaharas. Apart from that, we have evidences of they have been fighting with the Pallavas of Kanchi and the Cholas. As I have mentioned in my presentation too, that they challenged Chola Empire, but they did not challenge Chola Empire when the Chola Empire was at their peak. They challenged when the Chola Empire started declining, and moreover, they have a hostile past to share with the Cholas, because Kadamba earlier were the feudatory of the Chalukyas, and the Chalukya have a hostile past with they were continuously struggling for their supremacy with the Cholas. That's why Chola war also has been challenged by the Kadambas. Apart from that, Nawab of Honawar, who has been credited with destroying this dynasty completely, and apart from that, for some time, Yadavas of Dilgiri have defeated this dynasty. So these are the other evidences. And as far as sources is concerned, I think in my first slide I have clearly mentioned that it is very strange that why Kadamba did not produce any literature. Most of the sources of Kadamba dynasty has been written with the help of the inscriptions, and their inscriptions have been found in the two languages. First one is the Sanskrit. When they were issuing inscription in Sanskrit language, they basically issued in this inscription in the Goa region. And when they were issuing inscription in the Karnataka region, interestingly, they changed the language of the inscription. Inscription that has been found in the Karnataka region has been issued in the in Kannada, Kannada. This something I have dealt with my PhD topic, that somehow this is fall in the category of a term which has been dedicated in history by Sheldon Pollock, that vernaculization of the languages. Or that are the two questions which has been asked to me. I hope that.
Thank you so much, Sabir.
Can I make a comment? Paper.
After they've all taken their questions, and the Rajputs are the most popular among the audience, so Alok, you have too many questions to answer.
Hello. Sir, first one, this paper is basically based on special reference of Battle of Tarain, not the whole Rajput, your question. And second, sir, references mainly focus on SI survey reports, research paper with some on SI websites. I gone through some research thesis on South Ganga. I also gone through book of Indian Military History by J.N. Sarkar, P.K. Majumdar, various, and some section of on Indian Army website. There is also short military history, and other some historical reports and papers I gone through for the references. And third question is on neighboring. What can we learn from Battle of Tarain in current scenario with neighbor state? In Tarain, we generally take reference with first battle. In Rajput, follow the idealism. In international relation, there are two theories: idealism and realism. India earlier, even we can say before PM Modi, we are following idealism. But after that, there is a strategic change. We are focused more on strategic interest than the relations. We maintain relations Russia and USA at the same time. Not we focus ki maybe Russia and we import oil in recent times from Russia. So we can focus on our national interest, not the relation. Who any superpower power can angry, we do not care. As our Secretary S. Jaishankar in many debates say, and he clearly mentioned, I am here for all national interest. Nothing else matter.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alok. Manasi, you want to take your 2 questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, as you asked, Karan Daka, the author of this text, he is a historian, military historian or not?
Not exactly that, but his way of writing, how is he involved?
My study was on textual study, critical textual study. तो ये हिस्ट्री में हुआ था क्या नहीं था और कैसे फॉलो हुआ, तो उस पे हम अभी फोकस नहीं किए हैं. अभी हम लोग थ्योरी पे ज्यादा फोकस किए हैं. एंड कामंदा को पर्टिकुलरली मिलिट्री हिस्ट्री पे उनका नॉलेज था क्या नहीं था, इस क्वेश्चन का तो जवाब मैं ऐसे दूंगी. Before him, he followed Kautilya, Arthashastrakar, and I think as per my knowledge, of course शायद उनका इस विषय पे knowledge था, so that's why he mentioned this kind of knowledge in his text. I think.
And the sources? If you want to comment on the sources?
Yes. The sources is the main text from Sanskrit text which I used to write my thesis, paper, and I also use some scholarly paper which are available in Google and other sources.
So you read the original Sanskrit?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that leaves us with Achintya. You have one question to answer, which is the sources that you use, which I think ironically you're the only one who flashed the sources also on the slide, so you're not liable to answer that question. Let me ask you a question then instead. So you mentioned about various adaptations to the patriarchal framework of the ancient institution of caste system. To what extent do you ascribe it to the changing socio-political fabric or the military demands of the changing societies of the time? Can you ascribe it to that? Or what do you think brought about this change in the rigidity of caste system to allow people from other castes to participate in martial activities?
Ma'am, I would say that it was basically due to external invasions, foreign invasions. Because prior to the foreign invasions, there was not much of participation, but during foreign invasions, external invasions, particularly from Central Asia, Afghanistan, and the Middle East, starting from the 8th century onwards, there was other castes and other communities started actively being conscripted into military service. Yes.
So thank you so much. I hope there are no more questions from the audience. Okay, so I'll quickly just sum up. I think what the 4 presentations have really brought out is the richness and plurality and diversity of culture, military culture in medieval India. And to say that there existed one political idea or one political philosophy in medieval period would be doing grave injustice to the various disparate, divergent, diverse voices that come out from medieval India. I mean, right from the maritime achievements of Kadambas, and it was not a mean feat because there's evidence in Arab literature, there's mention of Kadambas as Paschim Samudradipati, which is Lord of the Western Seas, which is a huge achievement for its day and time, to the martial tradition of the Rajputs. I think the medieval period has a lot of stories to tell. But this is my hunch and my intuition that there have been certain continuities and commonalities between the ancient to the medieval. And a good example of that is Manashi's own text. So she talks about Kamandak's Nitisar, which is somewhere around the 7th century AD. But we actually also have an Andhra Kamandak featuring somewhere in the Deccan region in the 15th century. And what we understand from that Andhra Kamandak is that a lot of the original verses of Kamandak's Nitisar were actually incorporated, and there were certain changes made, there were certain additional material added, which really tells us how the texts were actually adapting to the changing socio-economic political context. So I would really also want you to shine some light on this aspect as to what were the changed features and why, what propelled those changes. And I think perhaps it's the patriarchy of the caste system which also had to keep pace with the changing socio-political fabric which caused these changes. So I think culture is a fabulous, I have this feeling that there have been enough and rich borrowings from the past as there have been outright rejections of some of the past traditions, and that's how traditions are supposed to be taken forward. Culture is like an ancient palimpsest, and this is to use the phrase of our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, that he said that there are layers upon layers, and each successive layer does not really erase the essence of the previous layer. It just builds on it. So what you have at the end of it is something different, but it's not completely divorced from the core of the initial, the initial layer that we talk about. So on that note, I'm hoping that you will see refined papers to be published as a compendium. I wish all the presenters a good luck, and thank you audience for the patient listening. Thank you so much.
The program पे recording चली है और you want to listen to that? नहीं
Ladies and gentlemen, I request all of you to move downstairs for the closing ceremony, please. Thank you.
He came on the TV also.